All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating geopolitical shift. We're going to break down a deep, wide-ranging conversation between Joe Lonsdale and Undersecretary Jacob Hellberg. They get into the massive intersection of the AI revolution, global supply chains, and international alliances. Hellberg, from his vantage point at the State Department, lays out this sweeping vision of how technology isn't just, upgrading our software. It's literally redrawing the map of global power. Now, it's super easy to feel anxious about AI, right? But consider this quote from the discussion. In the history of human civilization, we have never encountered a time when you had a technology that led to mass unemployment. The speakers argue that our absolute biggest fear regarding AI, that it's going to totally wipe out the job market, is fundamentally flawed. Instead of destruction, they argue we are actually sitting at the center of the biggest economic revolution in over a century.
So here is our roadmap for understanding this geopolitical blueprint today. We'll start with AI and the job myth, move into Europe's stagnation, look at the China challenge, explore the Pax Silica coalition, and finish up with the next tech century. We're going to connect the dots between AI, macroeconomic trends, and this brand new global coalition.
Section 1. AI and the job myth. Let's talk about tech job creation. Historical fears of tech causing mass unemployment are almost always misplaced. Take the personal computer revolution, for example. Back then, people were terrified PCs would completely wipe out administrative staff. And to be fair, it did displace about 3.5 million jobs. But, and this is the key, that revolution gave birth to the software industry, which created a staggering 19 million new jobs in America. The speakers use this analogy to show that technology acts as a massive engine for job creation, expanding the whole economic pie rather than just shrinking the workforce.
And the current data tells a really fascinating story too. The IMF standard for full employment is basically an unemployment rate of around 5%. Right now, the US is actually below that threshold, which means the labor market is historically tight. And at the exact same time, productivity is growing at an incredible 5%. Hellberg points out that despite all the doom and gloom narratives you see in the press, the hard economic data shows AI is driving immense productivity while jobs remain incredibly plentiful.
Moving on to Section 2, Europe's stagnation and a culture of low growth.
While the US is experiencing all this tech-driven growth, Hellberg points out a pretty stark contrast in Europe, noting that it hasn't grown meaningfully in over a generation. He attributes a lot of this to intense overregulation and super high energy costs. But honestly, what's perhaps more fascinating is his take on the cultural shift. He argues there's been this creeping anti-risk mentality, almost a hostility toward success and toward heretics, the people who think completely outside the box. According to the speakers, this kind of culture massively disincentivizes the risk-taking you need to build dynamic tech sectors like Silicon Valley.
And the result of these differing approaches? Well, it's a massive divergence in economic growth. Hellberg notes that countries leaning into AI, the Pax Silica countries, which we'll get to in just a second, are growing at roughly 4% year over year. Meanwhile, traditional G7 countries, heavily weighed down by Europe's stagnation, are growing at only about 1%. To put that into perspective, it means one group doubles its entire economy in 18 years, while the other takes 70 years. That is a massive compounding gap.
Section 3, the China challenge. Let's look at deep manufacturing.
So, the speakers describe China's situation as kind of a dual reality. On one hand, they absolutely acknowledge China's incredibly deep, powerful manufacturing ecosystem. They are undeniably a technological powerhouse, no question. But on the flip side, Hellberg points out severe internal weaknesses. He asserts that China's macroeconomic data is decelerating and, in his view, heavily falsified. He even mentions that the state has made it illegal to do due diligence on their economic indicators. The source argues it's a communist model that ultimately stifles private property rights and long-term economic health.
Which naturally brings us to China's foreign policy, specifically the Belt and Road Initiative. The source heavily critiques this approach. Hellberg and Lonsdale frame it as a purely extractive economic model implemented by state-owned enterprises. They argue that instead of lifting partner nations up, China extracts value, often leaving these developing nations totally buried in unpayable loans. It's framed as a zero-sum game that is reportedly causing a lot of international backlash right now as those debts finally come due.
Section 4. The Pax Silica Coalition and Securing Supply Chains.
Okay, let's clearly define what this is. Pax Silica is a brand new economic security coalition currently made up of 14 countries. The main goal? To secure vital supply chains, foster innovation, and capture global market share for the AI revolution. Hallberg emphasizes that the last 20 years have really highlighted the danger of relying on single points of failure in adversarial countries. Pax Silica is all about doing deals on critical minerals, energy, and infrastructure with trusted allies. The idea is to ensure the US and its partners are never held hostage for the inputs they need.
So how does this actually work in practice? Pax Silica is built on 3 highly structured pillars. First up, principles. This ensures a genuinely pro-innovation approach to regulation. Second, projects. This means rolling out tangible economic security zones with partner nations. And third, policy. Creating unified frameworks for protecting intellectual property, critical infrastructure, and fostering AI-friendly rules. It's basically a comprehensive framework designed to turn abstract diplomatic ideas into very concrete, real-world actions. And here is where that abstract policy transforms into a massive physical reality. Hallberg highlights a recently signed, genuinely historic deal to build a 4,000-acre AI-native industrial park near Subic Bay in the Philippines. This is a massive first-of-its-kind platform. It's designed to secure vital inputs for American and global supply chains, while simultaneously bringing immense investment and jobs to a really key geopolitical ally.
Section 5. The Next Tech Century. A completely reordered map. Ultimately, the speakers contrast two wildly different visions for the global economy. One is the extractive, state-run model, like their critiques of China's Belt and Road. The other is the Pax Silica approach, which is built on positive-sum private partnerships. The source argues that America's superpower lies in private companies making great products and growing the economic pie for everyone. When America partners with a country like the Philippines, the explicit goal is that both sides win, and both sides grow wealthier together.
I really want to highlight this specific quote from Hallberg. We are probably engaging in the biggest reorganization of the global supply chain in a very, very long time. The source material is just immensely optimistic about this. They see the US engaging in a massive reindustrialization effort right at home, literally building factories in places like Ohio, Oklahoma, and Virginia, while simultaneously ensuring those factories are fed by secure, positive-sum supply chains spread across allied nations around the globe.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to chew on. We saw earlier that the AI-integrated nations are growing at 4%, while others are stagnating at 1%. With growth rates diverging that sharply, how will this new AI-driven supply chain redraw the map of global power in just the next 10 years? The speakers suggest we are at the absolute dawn of an incredible new tech century, one that's going to be defined by those who embrace AI productivity and secure their global partnerships. It's a truly fascinating look at how technology dictates our geopolitical reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.